MJ Hobby Corner here. Welcome to my studio. This is a short video to show you guys some of the things that I'm working on. And in particular, I am doing a lot of work with smaller scale stuff that I'm going to need for my alternate history games. And I have decided that I'm going to be using the Conflict 47 rules for my little scratch built World War II thing that I've been working on so many weeks now. And I just about finished enough of these models to actually get a game going. And I have some 15 millimeter infantry that I'm going to be unboxing. I ordered some from Noble Knight Games. I ordered some German forces because I don't have any. So that's going to prolong my gaming a little bit longer, but they will get here shortly and then we can start the hedges that I'm making. Now this is one hedge, okay? This took me about 10 minutes to do. And I'm going to show you very quickly. That's what I really wanted to show. Okay, I have this example here that I'm starting. And this is going to be a low shrub or tree, right? For 15 millimeter scale, it's a good scale for a small tree. Okay. And basically we're going to fill this up now with vegetation. So to make the hedges, what I do is I use this old Christmas stuff that I know we're just not going to use anymore. Maybe it got, some of the parts got damaged or whatever. So instead of throwing that away, I cut out all of these little branchy things that it has, okay, and just fluff it up a little bit. I cut up one side, take out all of the filament from one side, make it nice and flat, and then we're going to glue this right to the stick, okay? So something like that. I'm going to give it a little space. There we go. All right, so let's do that. I'm taking this fine sawdust and just sprinkling it right over. All right, my brother does a lot of woodwork, and so he saves me all of this sawdust. Okay, so I have the fine stuff here, and here I use some coarser stuff. So what I do is I basically just add a little bit more glue if I need to, if I feel like I want more. And it's a very quick and dirty way to do it. And then I throw this nice fluffy sawdust, cover it all up, okay? Make sure that everything, blow on it a little bit, okay? And so I got this nice fluffy thing there. All right, one more step. So the last step is I take my dollar store paint, and I've used airbrush on this before. It works just as well, but it just takes a little more time. So this is the quickest and dirtiest way to do it. Okay, and just let this dry fully. Gonna let this dry fully. Okay, and it makes like this, all this like really weird. I like it a lot. It's like really wild hedge growth, Now I'm gonna, to cover up that area, these areas that are bare, I use a little bit of texture paste. Okay, and that's about it. Now for this paint, and to be honest, I do like the yellow on it. You can kind of use it as a fall plant, but I'm gonna spray paint this one. Okay, and let this all dry. And once this hardens up a bit because of the glue, I can go back and add a little bit of lighter green even, okay? Okay, so to make my hedges a little bit smaller and more, to the size range of 15 millimeters, if I don't want them that big, I just trim the Christmas decoration here and stick it to a popsicle stick with hot glue, and you can see this nice row of hedges. Now again, I can stop here, no big deal. you know. But to make it a little nicer, I add the sawdust. Okay, so the sawdust has been added, and I'm gonna blow a little bit off before I add the spray paint. So I can put these in front of my houses to give them a really cool decoration, right? Like it's vegetation that's gone wild. I mean, these houses are going to be in a wartime setting, so I'm assuming nobody's going out to prune these things. So these things are going wild and pretty much just overgrowing. But it'll give a nice touch to the houses. You can also use these to mark out the edges of forests, right? Things like that. They make very good cover, especially for 15 millimeter figures, and you can use them in 28 millimeter as well, you know, because it's just scatter terrain, really. So there's the little guy and the hedge. And now this one is a larger piece, and this one I'm using for 28 millimeter. But look at how thick and lush it makes trees, you know. And this is by using these same ornament things. This one was a little bit bigger, so is a lot bushier, and I just trim it up to give it the triangular shapes, and so it makes some very interesting hemlock slash pine like vegetation. Okay, and this one I gave an even more interesting shape here, and I could paint all that in brown if I wanted to, but I'm not going to. I'm just saying that it's vegetation kind of clinging to the bark of the tree. And so this is a very lush forest edge or something, and I usually use this in the edge of the table to decorate it. So not bad, and that's all using the same sawdust technique. So to fill in my open areas of the sticks there, I use Vallejo earth texture. I usually have this in the studio. I use very, very little of it, so it lasts me a long time. But basically, that's what I use, and I just poke into it and let it dry. It dries rock hard, and so it makes a cool, like, earthy texture, all right? That's obviously just one way. If I don't have that, I'll use Uncle Adam's way of some crazy glue on the stick, and then add baking soda or baking powder. And let out that all dry, and you get that nice, very fine texture that's good for 15 millimeter or smaller scales. Okay, so to make a more like a bank, like a river bank, if I use these to kind of decorate my little river banks or whatever, if I just want to have like hilly, rough terrain, right? Here's the little vegetation piece at the end. I just cut that Christmas ornament into little pieces, and I put one piece there, and then I take cork bark, and I got this cork from Walmart. It comes in sheets. You can get it in packs, and basically those sheets last me a while. I break it up into little pieces, little random pieces, and just set it up the way you see. And the next step is to add some larger grains of rock work, and then finally my sand. Okay, so the next step is I add a little bit of my kitty litter mix, okay? And this is basically a little bit of kitty litter and sand and this stuff here that I bought at the dollar store. It's all these like chunky rocks, all right? So there's a little bit of everything in there. And then now for the final step. Now I'm going to take my spray glue, okay. Okay, so for this one, I spray painted it brown, not green, and that's just to give me the sort of bank, right? So texture the bank with the sawdust. Okay, and then I'm gonna add my vegetation on top of this once it's all dry. All right, so this stuff has to dry, and then what I do is once it dries, it becomes nice and hard. I give it a dry brush of a lighter brown. Here's the little vegetation piece. Gonna let that dry, and then I place all my vegetation on the top row there. So basically you have like this vegetation growth. Can also be left like that as like dug up ground or something like that. You can change the shape of the base by using cardboard. I mean, a million and one different things can be done. Okay, but I'm gonna let this dry for now so that I can put my vegetation on top. And if I want to, I can add like a little log here. And that will then, if I make several of these, I can use them to adorn my banks. And if I make them in different shapes using cardboard instead of the sticks, then that I can make a cool like stream or something, or really a very built up riverbank. So to make patches of grass, I just take my twine and cut it into pieces, then take an old comb, as you can see, and just kind of separate the filaments. And this is a very coarse, very kind of hard bristle, right? So it stands up nicely. Try not to get the soft twine, which, unless you want, I mean, it definitely, for underwater scenarios, I've learned that the softer twine is actually better because it replicates the very thin filaments of algae. Okay, so I give the filaments there a little spray paint of green, and then put in my sawdust, and this will be like a nice little shrub. Okay, and there you go. And I leave a little bit of that bottom there, that lighter color. It kind of looks good. It's like part of the bark. I could also take a little bit of darker brown, leather brown, and just put it on the bottom there, just to give like the impression of woody, like woody stems and stuff. And then just kind of come back with the comb a little bit and spread it out. And so there I have like a shrubby thing growing out of the rocks and dirt and stuff there. Now I'm doing a different piece here, and if you want a desert region, you can certainly do it with do it like this and just keep it as stone, and maybe put little cacti or something. It could definitely be used in desert regions as well. I've done it before. It can be done for jungle regions as well, if you want to have like these little scatter terrain pieces for jungle regions. But what I'm going to do is something a little different. So I have my cork stone and basically just space filler. That's what the cork is doing. And then all of these little different grain sizes. And then here I'm going to keep this open, okay, because this way models can go through. So let's fill this up with vegetation. Okay, and this makes some nice moss-filled rocks. I mean, I've seen areas in the Pacific Northwest of the United States, and even here in the Northeast, in like places like Maine, you have these areas where rocks are just completely covered in mosses. Anytime near like bogs or streams or even rivers. But especially in the Pacific Northwest, you have these areas where it's just surreal. These rocks and trees and everything are just covered in mosses. Pretty much what they call the cloud forests out there. So I just thought that that's a really cool thing to try to mimic. And so by using that sawdust, you can get some pretty interesting texture. All right, so I have to wait for all this stuff to dry. Okay. All this stuff needs to dry now, and then I can continue. I can finish it all up, and then I will have a nice bunch of terrain for my 15 millimeter alternate history. It's gonna be with the rules Konflict 47. That's what I'm gonna use, and it's gonna be in a smaller scale. So there are a few things that I'll have to adjust, but I think that it'll be perfect for all these little walkers and things that I've made these past couple of weeks. So this is now the terrain phase of that project, and I hope to end it very soon so that we can get to the tabletop. So hopefully you enjoyed this. This was all about vegetation, terrain, and just some very quick and easy pieces of terrain using old Christmas decorations. All right. Have a good one, guys. We'll talk very soon.